We have some horrifying news coming out of Bangladesh. We've had yet another terror attack over the weekend. Vice News reports here. Islamist militants killed 20 people, most of them foreigners, inside an upmarket restaurant in Bangladesh's capital before security forces stormed the building and ended a 12-hour standoff on Saturday. Among the dead were 9 Italian nationals and 3 students attending college in the United States. It marks a major escalation in a campaign by militants over the past 18 months that had targeted mostly individuals advocating a secular or liberal lifestyle in a majority Muslim nation, Bangladesh. The gunman who stormed the busy restaurant in Dhaka's diplomatic area late on Friday night ordered all Bangladeshis to stand up before they began killing foreigners. 13 hostages were rescued, including 1 Japanese and 2 Sri Lankans, the army said. Local authorities say no operational links exist between Bangladeshi militants and international jihadi networks. They say 2 local militant groups, Ansar al-Islam and Jamaat-ul-Mujahideen, have been behind the violence over the past 18 months. Ansar pledges allegiance to al-Qaeda, while Jamaat-ul-Mujahideen claims it represents ISIS. Okay, so, honestly, whether or not they had a direct link with ISIS in terms of an operational link, as they describe it, I don't think that that's neither here nor there, because they both share an ideology. They both have drunk the same Kool-Aid, so there's enough of a connection for me. And ISIS came out and said, oh yeah, we are responsible for this. Again, there's no operational link, so they're not like in contact with people in Syria and Iraq, but there's enough of a connection in terms of ideology where one pledges allegiance to another, and they say, oh, yes, we're both fundamentalist assholes. And to me, that's enough to pound the gavel and say, yeah, there's a link. Again, not an operational link, but a link in ideology. So the terrorists killed the victims with, quote, sharp objects. This is a recurring thing in Bangladesh. We've had so many liberals and atheists and secular bloggers, for example, just being macheted to death. We've covered, I don't even know how many at this point. I lost count, 7, 8 different instances of that happening in such a short time span. The attacker screamed, Allahu Akbar, and here's a kicker. If you could recite verses of the Quran, they let you go. So they were also the kids of the Bangladeshi elite. Now, that's also a very, very important fact to bring up, because here is a clear-cut case. I've never seen a clearer case of this has everything to do with religion. Like, some people, after all these attacks, they was nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with religion. But first of all, they're screaming Allahu Akbar. Now that, I get it, that doesn't mean that everybody who ever says that is a terrorist. Of course, there's many devout people. The overwhelming majority of devout Muslims say that, and means God is great, and they never do anything bad. But in this instance, they say that, and that means it is directly tied to religion, their violent interpretation of the religion. They are fundamentalists. They are literalists. To try to say this has nothing to do with religion is beyond preposterous. If you could recite verses of the Quran, they let you go. That is by definition to do with religion. So vague talking points that obfuscate the issue are not welcome in this instance. We have the kids being the people who did the attack, the attackers being the kids of the Bangladeshi elite, which means what? You can't say this has to do with lack of opportunity or extreme poverty or they're hopeless and there's a dire political situation that they're struggling with. No. These are pampered little pricks who are spoiled brat kids of Bangladeshi elites, and they drunk the Kool-Aid of fundamentalist, literalist Islam. So, again, that doesn't mean all Muslims are bad people, and the most devout will by definition be the most violent. That's not what that means. But what it does mean is, yes, fundamentalism is real, literalism is real, Islamic extremism is real. And sometimes this is how it manifests. So these are people, make no mistake about it, what's their motivation? Why would they do it? Well, they're doing it because they're fundamentalists and they're brainwashed and they really believe it. So, and people will say, oh, no, but this has something to do with U.S. foreign policy. Well, are there other instances where indeed that is the case, where a rise of, ISIS, for example, came out of Iraq, that was out of the vacuum that the U.S. created by toppling Saddam, and a worse evil came up out of the ruins? Yes, you could say for sure that there's a link in that respect. But here we're talking about Bangladesh, so we're not talking about Iraq, and we're talking about kids who are from elite families. And again, the majority of people that they killed, or many of the people they killed, 9 of them, I believe, were Italian. So that line of argument breaks down pretty quickly. It's not like we stormed and occupied Bangladesh. And it's not like Italy was, Italy, well-known anti-Bangladeshi militants from Italy and imperialists that went into Bangladesh and occupied. No. So why would they do it? Well, they're doing it because they think, the foreigners are evil, the Westerners are evil, these are infidels, these are people who are poisoning the earth. My religion tells me they're the problem, they're the bad guys, so now I will act in accordance with my dumbass holy book. And I'll say, hey, death is too good for you. I would do worse if I could, because God is giving me permission, in fact, giving me an order that, morally speaking, it is the right thing to do. Ethically speaking, it is the right thing to do to kill these people. They actually believe, man. And look, I understand it's hard. I get it. It's hard for people who are not religious to wrap their minds around that. But that's because you're not religious. Or maybe you're marginally religious, or maybe you're somebody who's religious, but you cherry pick the good parts of the holy books. But it's hard for people to understand that there are people who exist that take the worst parts of the religion and they see it in the holy book. They were raised to believe, no, this is literally true. Like, this is from God. And then look, if that's the case, so if their framework and their premise is correct, then they're acting in a way that is right. So if you buy into the framework and the premise, and of course the framework and the premise is total bullshit, but if you buy into that and you're brainwashed to really believe that and you act in accordance with that, well, then you think, well, duh, I'm right. What do you mean? I slaughtered the infidel. Yeah, of course I'm right. So there's 2 different ways to attack this problem, and both are necessary. One of them is, of course, and this is being done as we speak, so that's a positive side of this, is people from within the religion saying, no, you have the wrong interpretation, I have the right interpretation, and my interpretation is, go on to explain cherry-picking all the good parts or benign interpretations of the bad parts, where people will say, for example, oh no, when there was slaughtering of the infidel going on, it was specifically back then, and they were only referencing the pagans, and today that doesn't apply, and blah, 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 blah. So you can attack it from within the religion, and you can attack it with varying interpretations that put things in historical context and basically defang the negative parts of their religion. We see that with Christianity, we see that with a variety of religions, where you can have benign to good interpretations of the religion, like Martin Luther King Jr. The KKK is Christian, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is Christian. If you're going to be Christian, why not pick the better interpretation that's better and fits better with modernity and humanity, namely MLK's version? Why not take Malala Yousafzai's version of Islam as opposed to Al-Qaeda or ISIS's version of Islam? So that's one way to attack the problem. The other way to attack the problem, and this is the job of atheists and secularists and liberals, and I get that it's hard within these Muslim countries because they're very restrictive towards atheists, liberals, and secularists, and, oftentimes, like in Saudi Arabia, all atheists are considered terrorists, so we have to do the work for the liberals in those societies because they're banned from speaking their mind, or else they're risking their lives. But our job as atheists and secularists and liberals is to come out and say very clearly, no, I think your religion is bullshit. It's not true. So if you want to live in accordance with those holy books, well, just understand you're living a lie. You're living a lie. So you're wasting your life because that's not real. You might as well go, take the fucking Pokemon pamphlet on how to play that. Go take a Harry Potter book or two. Go, worship Teletubbies. Go worship the old Roman gods or the Greek gods or whatever the case is. Because it's all equally not true. None of it is accurate. None of it is right. So would you go pick up Mother Goose and try to live your life by every page of it? No, because that would be a waste of your time, right? Right? But why? Oh, it's different when it comes to the holy books. Why? Well, because society told me it's a holy book. Yeah, but what if they are wrong? Consider that. There are over 4,000 religions in existence right now. Do you really think you are so special that you just happen to be born in the right one? No, because everybody says, we are the one true religion. We're the ones who got it right. We're the ones who nailed it. Hey, Mormons, Joseph Smith, he's the one, right? Scientologists, Xenu, fucking everybody gets a planet or some shit. Whatever they teach in that stupid religion. People go, Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever the case is, tribal gods, whatever. Each one of them makes the claim, well, we're the right one. But see, none of you are the right one. It's all mythological bullshit. And the thing is, it's actually stunningly easy to prove that. Because if your holy book was true, we'd be able to go through it, and you could basically scientifically fact check it and go, oh, okay, let's see if this is right. Whoops, turns out it's not right. So, for example, in the Quran and the Hadith, you go through it and you find some really, really weird things, like they claim semen comes from your backbone. On that alone, boom, you shouldn't be religious anymore. Or at the very least, if you are religious, you should cherry pick the good parts and use it as a framework for your life and to serve humanity, as opposed to being actually brainwashed by it and believing the nonsense in there. Semen does not come from the backbone. That is scientifically inaccurate. So, right off the bat here, I've already proved that your holy books are indeed not holy because they're not literally true and they're not literally from God, because if that's the case, God is wrong. And that's not very godly now, is it? All right, more. We have Muhammad, and of course, famous story. A lot of people think, oh, he's flying on a winged horse, which would be silly enough. No, it's actually a winged donkey. That's cute. There's talking feet in the Quran. One of my favorites is, honey cures all diseases. That's not real. That's not true. So for people who believe it, and they're literalists, and they're fundamentalists, honestly, on top of many of you being dangerous, you're just embarrassingly stupid. I don't think you get it. Because oftentimes the people who are fundamentalists and have truly drunk the Kool-Aid, they look down at, the secular world and liberals. Look at these. They're infidels. They're inferior to us. Meanwhile, if you truly are a fundamentalist and a literalist and you're brainwashed and you believe it, you know how secularists view you? We look at you like, oh, you poor thing. You're like a toddler. You're like a toddler. You really believe every word of that? You believe every word of that. Did your brain not function? Where the fuck are your brain cells? How childish are you? But that's the world we live in, man. And for people who are like, I don't understand how anybody could believe that. Here, I can blow that mindset up with one fact. Nazis exist. So that is beyond historical fact. We know that. It's concrete, it's rock solid, it's put in stone. Nazis exist. So we had Hitler, this fucking buffoon of a human being who has a comical view of the world. The Aryan race is superior and Jews are at the bottom of the scale and everything in between. Let's just massacre everybody. Gypsies, black people, gay people, the communists, these people, everybody. So we're superior, they're inferior. We'll prove it by being savages and barbarians and killing all them. Wouldn't that prove that your actions are inferior? But no, people believe this, and so they act in accordance with that, and today they're still neo-Nazis. So if people are stupid enough to buy into Nazism and to think, no, that's nailing it, this is accurate and true, when it's the most preposterous thing ever, yeah, of course people exist who believe the holy books are literally accurate. Again, you and I struggle with understanding that because we don't believe that, and we know it's plain face of it is ridiculous. But those people exist. So we need to understand that. And look, again, as I've said 1,000 times, are there some instances where there's a mix of reasons? So it's geopolitical reasons, and yes, poverty weighs into it, and oppression, and so on and so forth. And so, you can have, it is in some instances a rational response to say, hey, if U.S. foreign policy didn't do X, Y, or Z, there would be fewer jihadists and fewer terrorists. Of course, it's a mix of different things that could lead into it. But there are some instances which purely fall into one camp or another. So it's purely retribution or revenge for a certain thing, purely based on politics or whatever. And this happens to be an instance where it is purely based on somebody drinking the Kool-Aid of Islamic fundamentalism and acting based on that, because all the supposed real-world grievances that they could bring up to justify this, it doesn't make any sense. Italians are not oppressing the kids of the Bangladeshi elite. That didn't happen. That's not a thing. If you believe that, it's totally made up. What happened is these kids were brainwashed into a fundamentalist ideology. They were drawn to it for whatever reason. Turns out they actually believed it and they acted on it. And now they look at you and think you're crazy. I'm the one who acted the most moral. I did what God wants me to do. Again, problem with that is God didn't want you to do that. You fell for the oldest trick in the book. You found comfort in this barbaric, savage, backwards, silly, ridiculous book that has no connection to reality, but you happen to believe it did because you're not that bright. So, yes, the problem is the fundamentalists. The problem is the people who really believe and they act violent. This is not to blame all people, all Muslims, of course not. This is not to blame all religious people, of course not. There are many good religious people. There's many, religious people who blow off the holy books or just cherry pick the good parts. But there are people who exist who read the bad parts and believe it and then act on it, and this is what you get.